Come, walk down the winding path. Don't mind the spooks and monsters. They stay hidden within the trees. There are mysteries in this world that you need to know, and paranormal truths that need to be told. Come, step up into the caravan while we share tales of old, as well as new accounts about things you thought only existed in your nightmares. Welcome back inside the caravan. We have a very special announcement for everyone. We have a new outro song for you by the amazing and talented Shawn James, who released his first album in 2012 and got with his band in 2013, the Shapeshifters. So in celebration of his music, we are wanting to bring to you a special episode about shapeshifting. Vance Nesbitt is back with us. Thank you for coming back again for the third time in a row.
I know. Well, it's nice and comfy on this couch here. And you got new pillows. I really like the fact that you put new pillows on the couch here. This is very comfortable.
Yes.
Yes, we are doing shape-shifting. And I can prove, I have physical proof about shape-shifting because I'm a shifter myself, actually.
Oh, really?
So, absolutely, because I can show you pictures from when I was a little baby as to what I am now, and I used to be really small. I only weighed a few pounds, and now, so I have shape-shifted over. It took me a while, to get to this point. But shape-shifting itself is absolutely, that's a perfect word. Shape-shifting itself is a pretty fascinating subject because it appears that the lore of the shapeshifters and all the different diversities of culture that reflect on that topic seem to be very prominent, and you learn a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, growing up, I heard a lot about vampires and werewolves, and I don't think that I ever really heard about any other types of were animals or shape-shifting until I actually got into this with you. And now I've learned that there's werelions and people like the Aztecs had a ceremony that they believed that they could actually shapeshift into jaguars. There's also the belief of shapeshifting into dogs and cats, as well as being an animal that can shift into a human.
Right, and that puts a whole different concept on things that, therefore, animals would have to have a conscious in order to want to become human. So they would have had to have that entire thought process in order to manifest into a human. So, wow, there's a whole new dynamic that I never thought of before. It's rather interesting.
Well, exactly. And then there's
plants?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there is actually the belief of being able to shapeshift into a plant or an inanimate object.
That brings back a whole new dynamic to, although that was a Martian plant from Little Shop of Horrors, but, how creepy would that be? I don't know. Why would you want to shapeshift into a plant unless you were looking to escape something, I would imagine.
Right. No, shapeshifting can happen for many reasons, whether you're trying to challenge somebody, whether you're trying to escape something, or be a trickster. I mean, there's just a million different reasons that you can come up with on why you would want to shapeshift or even what you would want to shapeshift in.
I'm thinking that probably that you brought up trickster. That would probably seem to me, first reaction, that would probably be the most popular reason why, is either seeking a revenge or just to be that trickster would seem probably the most popular reason as to why people would shapeshift. And we do say people, but like you said earlier, animals could shapeshift too. And
well, the crazy thing is there's the half ones. which I think is called therianthropy.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Well, and those ones are your centaurs and your mermaids. So they're
Right.
the half and half. But for me personally, honestly, if I was to have the ability to shapeshift, my number one reason would definitely be to I think I would play tricks. I would.
Not you, Jennifer. No, you're too sweet to do
Too
that.
innocent.
Now, come on. Yeah. It's just sweet little innocent old me as you go into your local grocery store as a
Right?
wolf, and you could have just about anything you want, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Right?
We're calling animal control, and yeah. No,
It would
like
be a
I
lot of
said,
fun, you have to admit.
I if you are aware of it. Now, isn't that kind of a
Mm.
weird question? Would you be aware if you had shapeshifted into an animal with the same consciousness and thought
Well,
process? Would you be thinking through your head in the English language, or would you understand everything in a canine or whatever animal you may shapeshift into? Would you be thinking in that type of a conscious? And then would you
well,
be able to
go
slip
ahead.
back out of it again? I don't
That's
know.
interesting. In movies, okay, let's think about movies. When somebody has
Hmm.
transformed into a werewolf, do you
Right.
remember if they recall what they've done? Like, they know that
No,
they're
I'm
monsters and they know that they've hurt
right.
someone, but I tend to believe that they find out about it later that, oh my gosh, this person got killed, and then there's a
Hmm.
realization that, oh, I did it. Um,
Right.
so maybe you don't, but you would definitely be aware that you shapeshifted after you shifted in back into a human. I mean, because also in the movies it seems extremely painful. You know what I mean?
Right. And it is a Hollywood adaptation from
Right.
screenwriters to film, and that is just an adaptation for the drama effect. Makes it a little bit
Well,
more scary. However, I would think that if you're physically changing your bone structure and your muscle
hmm,
structure, yeah, it would seem like nerve endings would be stretched and tormented, and it would probably be a painful process, much
but
like your sister had brought up on the episode of vampires and werewolves. Would she do
mm,
it? And she's like, yeah, it depends on what the pain is. Well, you don't get that choice. You either push the yes button, I would do it, or the no button, I wouldn't do it. You don't get
right.
to ask those questions. So my guess would be probably pain would be a reality of it. I would kind of think. I don't
See,
know.
do you recall in the very first, it was like within the first couple chapters of Monsters Among Us by Linda Godfrey.
Hmm.
There was the one about the little girl who their mother was at the coin op, the laundry.
Oh yeah,
And
yes,
so,
yes,
and
right.
well, she, if I remember correctly, she watched this man transform, and he seemed to have been in pain. Just the way that she was describing it, how, I mean, because I thought
Hmm.
that he was growling or yelling, or I thought that there was
Being
some
great
kind of a just,
distress. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, how much of it is really Hollywood? How much of it would actually be that way? I mean, and this is all what if, we this would be a very fantastical thing if this could actually happen, but hey, let's just pretend for tonight that this is a reality, you know?
Right, but there's the thing, Jen. It might be a reality. Who
That's
knows?
true.
I mean, nobody can definitely say. It may sound extremely far-fetched, but
Right?
when you think about, let's go back 300 years, maybe
Mm,
400 years, and
right.
people were sitting amongst themselves in whatever situation they were in, and they hear this animal speaking to them from the trees. that would
Mm,
have that would have been something that just doesn't exist, but yet we
right.
have African greys and parrots that can mimic and speak just like we do.
That's
And
true.
back then it wasn't believed that that could be a reality. No, that's too far
Mm,
fetched. So who's to say that shapeshifting can't happen? Who's to say that, for those that see wolves in the wild, that maybe one of them has transformed and become part of this,
Yeah.
pack of wild canines.
Man,
And it goes
well,
back to the Beast of Bray Road and the
mm,
dogman or
right.
the upright walking canine, however you want to identify it. With all the people that have seen it, could it be a shapeshifter? What about all the stories that came out of, the Skinwalker Ranch? Because there again, the Skinwalker is a reference to shapeshifting. So even in Native American lore, shapeshifting is a very real thing. And it takes
Right.
on a very dark and a very demonic meaner about it. But who's to say that something like that isn't real? We go from Hollywood movies as to what we've seen, Lon Chaney going through his transformation into the Wolfman, and it was great for Hollywood revenue, and of course it brings that terror to the screen. But who's to say some of that really wasn't based on something that could actually happen? You know, it's a fascinating subject. Once you start diving deep into it, and you start reading and doing the research and look at Native American lore, like I said, it's been going on for centuries as far as stories of shape shifting and taking on transformation of different animals. And it seems like a lot of those creatures that are shape shifted into seem to me to be very deformed and demented
Hmm.
and have that evil presence about them. So that's
Right.
kind of scary within itself too.
It
Hmm.
is true that shapeshifting has been generally in a very dark light. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take this opportunity now that this kind of popped in my head. If there is any listener out there now or that finds this episode in the future or that might know somebody, if you know anybody or you yourself are a shapeshifter, please email the caravan of lore at gmail.com. I would definitely love to hear your story. And,
Mm-hmm.
because honestly, I have to say, if the opportunity presented itself, if somebody came to me and said, yes, I can shapeshift and I can teach you
Mm-hmm.
how, and we met together and I actually physically saw it with my eyes, I think I would do it. I think that I would just hands down do it.
You just want to be a vampire. You want to be come on, let's make
I
things
gotta let my
happen
inner
here.
monster out.
Yes, you do.
So here's the
Okay, so
question for you.
going back on that notation of you asking our
Oh,
wonderful audience, if you are a shapeshifter and you want to email us,
yes.
please keep in mind too that your anonymity is very
Oh,
important to us.
of
We will not
course.
share any information with anybody unless we have
Mm-mm.
your express written consent. You are protected by our promise that your story stays with us unless you want it to be shared.
And this
So
goes for
that's very
everybody in every story,
right.
whether you have a ghost story, a Sasquatch encounter, if you're a UFO
Hmm.
abductee,
Right.
anything, any reason for you to email us. If you don't want your story shared, if you just want somebody to speak to,
Hmm.
then speak to us. We don't have to air it. We don't have to talk about it.
Nope.
That's just the added bonus if you're like, hey, I got a story and I want to share it with your listeners. But it doesn't have to
Right.
be that way. Um,
But it's very therapeutic too.
oh, it is. It really is. I know that from my own personal experiences, like we were talking
Hmm.
with Shawn, it's been amazing to find this group of people and share our stories and realize that you know this
It's
is
a
the
safe place.
paranormal is more normal than we know.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a safe place. So, yeah.
So before I
Uh,
forget, my question
uh-huh.
for you: if
Uh-huh.
you could turn into any kind of were animal, which I guess there's a lot of different ones, which would you choose and why?
Um, okay, thanks for springing that one on me, but it would have to be I might take a little bit of time to discern exactly what specific species, but it
Mm.
would have to be some sort of a bird or a raptor, rather.
Whoa, really?
Hmm. Yeah.
Ooh. Like,
Yeah,
so is it
it would
because
have
you
to be a
want to
raptor.
fly?
Well, considering the fact that flying gives you the freedom to move in any direction, and that's quoted by Amelia Earhart. And if you think about it, yes, you have the freedom of movement in any direction with the ability to fly, but then you have other abilities too. You have the keen eyesight. You're able to see at great distances, and you're able to flee danger. You're able to promote danger and be part of danger as well, and be a great protector. You know, you might have a dog that is barking at you ferociously, and it's very terrifying. But think about how terrifying it would be to have, you know, a 6-foot wingspan creature coming at you too. I mean,
That's true with crazy talons.
yeah, now there you go. It's the crazy talons. So, yeah, I think I would be shapeshifting into a bird of prey of some sort. I would have to be a little more specific as to, you know, what it would be. Of course, you know, a lot of people would probably think, oh, he wants to be a majestic bald eagle. Well, you know, yeah, that would be cool because they're beautiful, but it's not about beauty. It's about being efficient as a creature in itself. So maybe an owl, you know.
Ooh, right.
Yeah, and I
So
could sit in the tree outside your window and make you think about, when's my next alien abduction going to happen?
right? Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So that question is if you could shapeshift into it. So you wouldn't be bound to being it all the time. But
Right.
now along the same path, let's talk about reincarnation really quick. If you were able to choose, but you had to be an animal, you could no longer be a human. You had to choose an animal, and you would be that animal permanently. No shape-shifting, no nothing. What would you
Oh
choose?
boy. Wow. Probably a household dog, a golden retriever.
Oh, yeah?
Sure, why
That's a good
not?
one.
You get the spoils of life, and I mean, you don't have to work. You get treated, you get fed, you get loved, you get groomed. Yeah, that's living the life of royalty. Why be a wild animal that you have to fend for yourself? Whereas a golden retriever, hey, people are taking care of you and they love you. As long as
That's
you're loyal
true.
to them, they'll be loyal to you. So, yeah,
Mm.
you can reincarnate me into a lovable little puppy. I'd be good with that.
Nice. Right on. Sounds good.
How about you? What I want to know what
Oh,
you would
man.
want to.
You know, honestly, I've always had a thing for wolves, and it's definitely my totem animal. So if I could shapeshift, I would definitely be a wolf. I love
Mm-hmm.
the freedom and being in the forest and all of that. But hearing your explanation of the animal if you reincarnated,
Mm-hmm.
it would be hard to be. I mean, it wouldn't be easy being a wolf all the time. You know, you really have to, chase your food
No,
and be out in the cold and all that. I
you have
mean,
to fight for your status. You know,
that's
I
right.
understand humans, we have to fight for our status too, but it's not as
Mm-hmm.
brutal as it would be, you know, wanting to have puppies of your own and having to go through a brutal fight first in order to be
Mm-hmm.
the alpha female or the alpha male, whichever it is you choose.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, your life is revolving around not starving,
Yeah.
you know,
No, so
and
I think to be reincarnated, I might go with a cat.
see, there you
Yep.
go.
I'll just knock shit
Or,
off counters.
all
And
right, there you go. Yeah.
so that way I can be spoiled and I can be loving, but I can still be
Hmm.
mischievous.
Well, sure, you'll knock everything off of every shelf in the house
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's what you would do. Yeah.
Drink out
Hmm.
of everybody's drinking glass, Mr. Meats.
uh, yeah. And you're
Yeah.
completely fascinated with a laser pointer. So,
Oh, yeah. Hey, man, you can jump really good. You got great
hmm,
balance.
this
Yeah.
is true. This is true.
Why
Um,
not?
okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
And you can be the cat, and I'll be the puppy, And
Yep.
boy, talk about a podcat. There you go.
Right? Exactly. I'll come back and be a podcat in my next lifetime.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I'm sure that would make for great listening, wouldn't it?
Right? It would.
There's a few things I would say there, but this is a family-friendly show, so we'll just keep it at that.
Yep.
No, you do point a very interesting question, and of course, for our listeners, feel free to put in the Caravan Library of Lore group page on Facebook. Put in what you guys, would want to
Oh, yeah, please.
be reincarnated into, because I'd be interested to see what other people. Sometimes I'm so shocked by you guys that you'll put in a post of like, wow, I never thought of that. That's fantastic. And then I get all excited because, our conversation was heard and really thought about. And, I know some of you would put in something fantastic as far as a reincarnated animal.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I want to know
say,
the reasons why, too, because those are also, even more fascinating.
Right. So somebody will come back and say it's snail.
Right? Oh my gosh. Before I forget too, I had some other things written down for Shapeshifters, and something that I found that was really interesting was the Old Norse Berserkers. That it literally, that word broken up means bear shirt. And they would wear these bear skins on their back when they would go into battle. There was also, and I forget what they were, but there was another group of people that did that, but that was with wolf skins, and they would howl when they were in battle. I mean, that would be pretty intense.
Oh, I would think so, but if you take a look at it, it's a wanting form of intimidation before going into battle of, wow, what are we actually going up against here? There's some crazy individual that's, maybe it's a wolf, maybe it's not a wolf. I don't know. I might want to just run away. That would be me anyway. I'd be running the other direction if I saw somebody howling dressed as a wolf, especially back in that time period. It's very intimidating. That same philosophy, if you think about it, was used in World War II by the British by painting the big tiger mouth on the front end of the airplane.
Oh, right.
And it was an intimidation thing. You see this flying largemouth, and you understand it's an airplane, but it's very intimidating, and it strikes the fear. And of course, the pilots take it as, I'm the badass of the skies, but it was very much part of the psychological warfare that was used to give an image of something that it might not really be, but it was very effective. The Spitfire with the flying tiger mouth on it, and it's still used. It's still used today. Today isn't so much for the psychological warfare of it, but it's more of the I'm just a badass pilot, and it just looks cool on my airplane, but still, that's where it came from, was you shapeshift your airplane into a ferocious animal of some sort to strike the fear into your opponent or into your enemy. So it was very effective.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm sure. I don't know, if I was on the opposing side and I knew that the people that I was fighting, let's say I knew that they did this, I would be half tempted to be like, okay, I'll play their game. I'll wear the wolf fur. I'll howl. And I think that it would confuse them because my side doesn't do that, but I did. So then they would be confused. So, and that goes back to the, there was the escape of danger use as punishment and used to challenge. So.
Right. Yeah, the use of challenge. Yeah, you would probably throw your opponent or your enemy into a, what did I just get myself into if I'm Now they're thinking, am I up against a shapeshifter? Yeah, good
Right?
strategy.
That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
that's playing chess on the battlefield. I don't know. It's very interesting. I like this whole concept of shape shifting. The more you think about it, the further you can take it and go, what could I actually do to those that I don't like? Although I prefer not to have conflict, but it certainly does paint a interesting picture to say, I'll get big sharp teeth and put on this. Well, although think of all the animals that were sacrificed in order to wear the wolf skin. You probably had this beautiful beastly animal that was just dominating the woods, and here you sacrificed it so that you could pretend to be that. That's kind of sad in itself. You know what's kind of fascinating too that I've noticed within, I'm going to ballpark it, but say within the last 8 years about the shape shifting topic, is that so much of it is extraterrestrial related, that extraterrestrials are shape-shifting into the human form, and every once in a while that human form lets a little bit of that extraterrestrial be visual, like you'll see the reptilian eyes come out, or an unusual behavior that is only represented by a specific type of creature, whether it be alien, extraterrestrial, that type of thing. But I've noticed that's kind of coming up in the culture too, that the mantis type of alien, and not so much the gray, but the mantis, definitely reptilian, definitely. I think reptilian probably takes a top tier as being the shapeshifter that's taking the human form. And every once in a while, and of course there's videos out there on YouTube land that you can watch, and you
Oh yeah,
see,
I've seen them where you see
a
their eyes change.
person. Right. Now,
Yeah.
is that an anomaly or is that CGI? Who knows?
Well, I'll
But
tell you a story.
again, I go back to that disclaimer of, I don't know. I can't say that it's not true. I'm
Well,
open-minded to everything, but is it possible that, a reptilian can shapeshift into the human form in order to blend in and be a chameleon amongst the human race? Who
I will
knows?
say
That's pretty.
this. I have a
Hmm.
family member. So I've got a very close friend of the family and a family member that this happened between them. The woman who is the family friend, she's been into the spiritual scene for many years. She's had many experiences like we have all had, and she's a Reiki master, and she practices just different divination tools and all kinds of different things. Well, one time a family member was seeing her one afternoon for, I believe, an energy healing or angel session, and her
Hmm.
eyes changed into cat eyes. And
Wow.
right before my family member's eyes, and it was such a profound moment for him to be like, oh my gosh, I just saw this. And see, I later went and spoke to her, and I was like, hey, my family member said this, and she laughed, and she goes, well, yeah, and we had talked about kind of where I was at in my spiritual road, and how sometimes the difference between people, like the reason why something like that wouldn't happen between her and I is because I don't need that proof. I don't need to see to
Right.
believe, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
Um
Hmm.
so I mean, but at the same time, now being in this world where there's more research and more proof and more, I do get curious. And so yeah, I think at the time I didn't think too much about it. I thought, okay, well, I believe this, and that's fine. But now I sit there and go, man, I want to see too, you know?
Right, right,
And
right.
and then to take it a step further, I want to know how to do that.
Well, of course you do. Of course you do. It's you.
Right.
Um,
Your
you know,
podcast host.
yeah,
Hostess.
exactly. Um,
Hmm.
I always found it really amazing. I think one of the most fascinating things about the Hollywood shapeshifter, let's say the Wolf Man, and I'm doing air
Mm-hmm.
quotes. I know we can't see it, but
Right.
they rip their shirt off, and their clothes are torn. And of course, the Incredible Hulk went through this too. They shred their shirt off when their pants are all shredded up and ripped, and then okay, you're
Right.
back. You're back to human form again, and your shirt is all fixed. How did that happen?
Oh, really? See, I didn't notice that because I could have sworn that I had seen, at least with the Hulk. Well, no, and I want to say Wolfman too, that they did at least have shredded clothes when they formed back.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was
But
what tipping them off as to, hey, you were doing something last night that you don't remember.
right, but you shouldn't be wearing that same clothes though. Those you should shed those clothes completely if it's a true metamorphosis, and then I mean you're not going to be able to put the clothes back on,
No,
you
this is
know.
true. Yeah.
So,
And I don't think the full moon has anything to do with it either. I think
oh yeah.
that's all. Yeah, I don't think so. Well, wow, you say that like maybe you know something I don't know.
Well, all I can say is spiritually speaking and energetically, one thing that I have noticed since I became a mom and have kind of gotten into that mom community, a lot of children who on a full moon night, I'm telling you, they're they're little werewolves, because
Oh,
they're
sure,
oh,
sure.
they're up so late and they're
Mhm.
more energized and
Mhm.
you can't get them settled and you're just going, "Oh, it must be a full moon again." So,
Right.
I mean, maybe you can't physically transform on a full moon, but people mentally do.
No, and that is pretty much scientifically proven.
Mhm.
Hey, you want proof of it, just go to any hospital or police department and take a look at
Mm.
any kind of incoming reports from
Mhm.
days with full moons, and you'll see their activity is certainly peaked
A
when
lot of
there is a full
pregnancies or
moon.
births, I
Yeah,
mean.
right,
That's
right.
crazy.
So, and especially in warmer weather when people are outside more,
Mm.
they're a little bit more active and
Mhm.
do crazy things. And I noticed it myself. I mean, I've noticed, for conversations that you and I have had doing shows, going, wow, everything just seemed to fall into place and it was a lot of fun. And I'm like, yeah, and it's
Right.
also a full moon. And you're like, wow, that was amazing. So,
Right.
yeah, no, there's a lot to be said about it. But I think Hollywood took the full moon aspect and
Mhm.
just added that for a little bit more drama, so to speak, as to maybe this
Right.
is what turns the man into the wolf, so to
Mm.
speak. And it's
Yeah, I
it's
mean, it's a
kind of
good,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a good, I mean, it goes perfectly hand in hand with that, so then it makes me want to look into the African lore with were tigers or were lions and see
Mhm.
what is it that would make them transform because I wouldn't think that it would be the moon. The moon isn't associated with big cats. So,
No, but they are a
yeah.
nocturnal animal, so
True, maybe it's just a night thing. Man, could
right,
you imagine that
right.
instead of every full moon that you turn, that it's whenever the sun every, when the sun is just gone. That would be so much more intense.
No, that is it's something to think about. Of It would probably wear you out if every time the sun goes down you're changing into a large beastly cat of some sort, whether it's a
Right?
jaguar or
Mm.
a werelion, whatever, and you sleep all day, not enjoying
Mhm.
the human existence because you're sleeping in recovery from being
Ooh.
a cat all night. So really, the only life you would know is being a cat, and there's a horrible trade-off. I'm sure you would spend a little bit of time in the human form, going, oh, as soon as the sun goes down, I'm back to being a cat again.
Well, that's
So
the
there you go.
crazy thing.
Maybe that's
Okay.
why we're keeping daylight savings time, is to give those shapeshifters into cats a little bit of a break. Give them that extra
Right?
hour of time of being a human. I don't know.
Well, but imagine this though. If it's every night and you're shape shifting into this whatever, I would think that because it's so often and that's when you spend your awake time, that in your human form mentally, you would also start transforming mentally. because you're sleeping during your human form. So then you're waking
Right.
up as this animal. I mean, eventually it would just get to the point where I'd beg to just be the animal fully and just talk about my human form.
Let's just end this right now and just make me a cat. Come
Yes.
on.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I would be afraid that, if I were to be deemed with that shape-shifting into a cat of some sort, it would be, that tiny little meow type of cat. I'd be like, no, I wanted to be a tiger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I don't know if anybody, has really done that comparison. I know most of all of our listeners have been to a zoo, but I've had the privilege of being face to face with both a male lion through a chain link fence, of course.
Right.
But to be face to face with a male lion and then to be face to face with a Bengal tiger.
Right.
A Bengal tiger is twice as big as a male lion. So where did this whole king of the jungle thing come from for the lion? I'm sorry.
Right.
That Bengal tiger is twice as big. The head,
Wow.
if I were to curl my body up into a ball, its head is still bigger than my body.
Wow.
It's just immensely huge on how big a Bengal tiger really is until you're face to face with it and you realize the soul that you're looking into when you're looking into its eyes, and like, holy cow.
Man.
So yeah, to buy the whole king of the jungle thing with the lion. Yeah, they're intimidating. Of course, I wouldn't want to come across one in the wild in a human form. And of course, it would suck to be a shapeshifter and you turn into a zebra, and now you're in the land of the lion. It's like, no, that was a bad place. So that all goes back to my I want to be a bird, because that way I could just fly away and no predator could get me that way. Then I would dominate the sky.
No, exactly. It's no, there was a couple times in life that I came face to face with wolves. They were pretty much full-blooded, and they were pets. They were pets though. And it was incredible, and they were so big, and it was amazing to just when they howl. It is so chilling.
Oh yeah, right. It's kind of, it's something that people might not think about. I posted a picture on the Existers a few days ago of Illinois with a large paw print, and there were those that were saying it might be a coy wolf or whatever. Living in the suburb in which I did at the time, now this goes back about maybe 15 years ago, but my next door neighbor notified me. He's like, hey, keep an eye on your kids, because I saw a wolf last night in between the houses here. And I know we have coyotes that run the gamut through our neighborhood here. And I looked at him with one eyebrow up going, okay, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I didn't put two and two together until I took the garbage out. Now, our garbage was kept outside, like most people, on the side of our house. And I had the garbage bag in my hand, and I walked out the front door, and lo and behold, there's a gray wolf. And it was a wolf, and it was standing on the side of the house where that garbage cans was, and he just stood there staring at me, and I was shocked. And yeah, you get that you do get the flight or fight, symptoms immediately, but I stood there, and it put its head down kind of low, and its paws were out in front of him, which is very submissive for a canine to do that. And so I don't, it may have just been as scared as I was, and it was showing me, it's being submissive, maybe doesn't want to have a problem. And I couldn't believe the size of this thing. I mean, this thing was huge.
Right.
And of course it was, I believe about 2 days later, I heard on the radio, and this was out of Chicago radio, that they were tracking, the Department of Natural Resources was tracking a pack of wolves that was running along the river, the Fox River, which we only lived a block away from. They were just traveling out of Wisconsin and traveling down the river, and was taking up territory in the neighborhoods, going through garbage or whatever, easy feed. involuntary habituation, like we talked about with Sean Forker in the Bigfoot episode. And okay, that gave me justification to hear that news report that, yeah, there were wolves in the area. So,
Right.
yeah, we're fortunate enough to have them here. And you think, wow, Chicago, really? Wolves? No, but yeah, they are in the area. Now, mind you, it's not in the urban area of Chicago. This is, the suburbs, but they do travel along the river. And now that we have this whole shape-shifting conversation going on, it's like, well, maybe it was, an old neighbor that used to live in the house and it's just coming back for a visit. Who knows? But,
yeah, imagine that. It's crazy because, like, thinking about all this, one of the biggest thoughts that pops in my head is dogman. Now, this is a subject that I have not really jumped into. My knowledge really goes as far as that book that Linda wrote.
Monsters Among Us, right?
Yes, and then I've only listened to maybe 1 or 2 episodes from Vic for Dogman Encounters. They were intense, though. They really were. Like, it really seems like these dogmen are one of the most evil cryptids. It just seems like it's so full of dark energy. And my thought, though, is it seems like there's reports from all over. And I know that I've heard that there's a report from Oregon, but I can't find it. And it makes me curious, well, are they here? I mean, there's plenty of, we've got plenty to support them,
Sure.
I mean.
Oh, absolutely.
So why wouldn't they be over here?
Yeah, you have wolf population where you're at.
Yeah.
And I do remember hearing some reports, not in a plethora, but I have heard reports coming out of Oregon and Washington State of an upright canid. And again, there's still a lot of science to be done and at least get evidence of some sort. Yeah, there's some pictures out there, but again, that's not something you can hold in your hand as evidence. It's something that you're looking at. But that whole subject is kind of creepy.
Well, I'll just ask too, shout out to Vic and any listeners, if you have any sightings, encounters, stories of dogmen or dogman type creatures, not Sasquatch, that are in Washington or Oregon, send them my way. I would love to hear them, listen to them, read them, whatever, I definitely want to try to get more educated, especially since I love to go out in the woods as much as I do. The only here's the story for you. My different Sasquatch type encounters that I've had over there on Mount Hood. But up in the Tillamook Forest, which is just right there along the coast, there was a road. It's washed out now. You can't get, the bridge washed out, so you'd have to take your truck through the river to get to the other side. And it's something you can easily do during the summertime, but along that road, it comes to this, you're at the very top of this peak, and there's these huge boulders that are just crazy. Like, you have to climb up them, and they're just sitting there. It looks really strange, honestly. It's like somebody just picked these things up and placed them, not, I don't want to say in a circle, kind of like a semicircle, kind of like, it just feels like they were put there. It doesn't feel natural, but I don't know. I can't say anything other than that, but there's just a creepy feeling. And the people that I'd go up there with, they also had a similar feeling. Well, if you go just a little bit further back from those rocks, which is only about 1 or 2 car lengths, there's kind of an area where you can go camping. Well, for some reason, it just felt super evil. And it's almost like it was like in my mind, or in your mind's eye, you could see this cave type of area. And it seemed like whatever was there were cloaked in red, like wearing red cloaks. So it's exactly like those hooded cloaked figures that we were talking about with Shawn, that my sister and I have seen at the end of the bed, but these ones had red. And it was just the strange, and it felt so ancient. And I remember saying, we need to leave, and I never want to come back. And I never went back.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, it's crazy. I've
Wow.
never felt anything like that before, ever. So, so again, there we go, reaching out to our listeners. If anybody else have heard any kind of red cloaked entities,
Right.
let us know, because that was crazy.
Yeah, because I don't ever recall even having a bell ring with me as to a story like that.
Right?
So
No,
yeah,
me neither.
that's fascinating. But see, when you bring that up, then I think about Anubis, the Egyptian god, and the dog. And where did that whole thing come from? I mean,
True.
Here's your typical wolf-headed, upright human, and it was considered a god, so therefore it was feared. Where did that whole thing come from? And of course,
right.
It's all speculation. All of this is speculation because none of us lived in that time period to understand where the Anubis actually evolved from or what it made it, to be. So,
funny thing,
I don't know.
I actually have an Anubis statue. I've had it for I think about 12 years, and it always sits either on my desk or on my dresser by my bed.
Yeah,
For
I've
some
seen
reason,
it, and
I've
it's
always been
absolutely beautiful.
yeah, I don't know. It's there's definitely a energetic calling to that particular.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Very fascinating.
When we were talking about, okay, so let's put this in the capsule of shapeshifting, and that you had brought up the question of, the dogman in Oregon or Washington State or in the Pacific Northwest and the ones here. And I've noticed for the amount of listening and the smaller amount of reading, but mostly the amount of listening, it seems like those that have had an encounter with an upright walking canine, 9 times out of 10, the question is being asked, did it have hocks or did it have human legs? Because apparently it's almost 50-50. Some have the human legs, and others have that typical dog hock, which people say is a backward turned leg, which really isn't. The backward bone part is actually what would be like the heel of our foot, and it walks on its toes, on its tiptoes. It's just that the hock is so much longer for us. But if you look at a dog's natural behavior, it does use its hock quite a bit when it sits down or, is squatting. And so it does. But to get a 50-50 feedback from witnesses to say, no, it had that backward leg looking thing, I find that fascinating, because maybe those are two entirely different, and maybe the one with the human legs are a shapeshifter, and the ones with the the hocks, maybe that's just a whole different cryptid that really hasn't been discovered yet, that it's a dog that's learned to be upright and walking, and it might be because it lives in a swampy area and it's learned to walk upright so that it doesn't get water in its face. I don't know. It's just a speculation. It could be just a simple biological answer as far as that goes.
Look at all the different Sasquatches that there are. You Google Sasquatch, and there's the 6 different faces.
Oh, right. All the different types, sure.
Right. And so I think that it would be natural for a dogman to also have these varying. However, the Sasquatch, its face is the only thing that's different. It's pretty significant to have completely like two totally different sets of legs.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, who knows?
Yeah, well, like you said, with the Sasquatch, it's a humanoid shaped body. It's all proportion with each other. Even if it's a small type of Sasquatch, the arms are still longer. It still has bipedal features about it. It walks around upright, which therefore is the term bipedal. But being of different heights. But yes, you're right. There is no big significant difference with the dogman.
Mhm.
How many reports of it is no? It was an upright canine. It had either human legs or the hawks or
Mhm.
hocks as legs, but so many of them say it had human hands with claws on the fingers.
Mm.
That just throws every dynamic right.
Yeah.
Wow, that now
Well,
you're talking a werewolf. I'm sorry, but that's a
right.
werewolf, and I didn't think they
See,
were real, but apparently they are.
I'll say this. There was one time I went to the zoo and I was looking in at the chimpanzees. And
Hmm.
there was only one. And he walks in and he sits down and I mean he was just right there on the other side of the glass and I'm right
Hmm.
there, you know. And it was just fascinating and he seemed older. You could kind of tell he was older and just the humanness to his
Hmm.
eyes and his face. It's weird because I've gone to the zoo since I was a kid. I've seen these animals since I was a kid, but in this moment there was just this similarity that was shocking and just, I mean, it really tugged on me. Unlike anything I've
Oh,
ever felt in my life. And so
right.
taking that experience and putting it into if I was to be standing in front of a Sasquatch or a dog man, something that would, I mean, I don't think I'd be able to handle it. I mean, just because of what happened looking at this chimp. To see
Hmm.
something 7 foot tall or bigger and to be like, but and the craziest thing is about it, the hardest thing to grasp is that you can sit there and look into its eyes, but it's an animal. Like,
Mm.
it's not a human. It can't talk like you and I can. It can learn, but it doesn't have the full development like we do. And it would just be so hard to grasp that about a Sasquatch. I just think it would be really mind-boggling.
Hmm. No,
Yeah.
you can go down an entirely different rabbit hole just on that subject alone. That the
Yeah.
chimpanzee is the indigenous creature here, and we're the alien species that were brought here from somewhere else,
Right?
and we share the majority of the DNA with the chimpanzee. But yeah, I mean, I've had that experience too. You're looking right into the eyes, and you see a soul there, and you're making that connection. And it's just like you could just have a conversation with this thing, and you
Mhm.
wonder how
Oh,
much of
yeah.
it is it really understanding, because I think they do understand. If you're talking in a calm voice to them, they're receiving it. They hear they hear these vocalizations coming from you, whether they understand your language or not. But then if you were to speak to somebody from a different country that you don't know a speck of their language, and you were to
Mhm.
talk to them the same way, they would probably understand that you're making a connection with them and don't see it as a threat. And, you know,
Right.
there's a lot to be said. So when you come
Mhm.
across a 10 to 12 foot tall bipedal creature,
Yeah.
you know, that's a moment that just changes everything in your life. And I've never had the experience, and careful what you wish for.
Yes.
I believe they exist.
Mhm.
We have so many friends in this community and friends that listen to this show that have had that encounter, and I
Yes.
totally believe them. I believe them with all my heart.
Oh, yeah.
Even with the conversation that we had with Sean
Shawn.
Forker on last Tuesday, or whenever Tuesday that show aired, and
Yeah.
he talked about the elderly couple with the Sasquatch going through the dumpster. I believe that with all my heart, that yes, it does exist. And if you saw something like that and you looked into its eyes, it would be
Right.
terrifying, because now the shoe is on the other foot. Now you're the
Mhm.
chimpanzee on the other side of the glass speaking to something that you don't understand, but it's
Mhm.
looking at you right in the eye, making that connection with you.
You know what?
And
Something really interesting. You know, we have all these other aware animals, right? All these other things that humans can transform into, supposedly.
mhm.
I didn't see anything about any kind of monkey or Sasquatch. I mean, you would think
Hmm.
that if we could shapeshift, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, why isn't it something that's so, much closer to us? Why is it a cat, or a dog?
Well,
Why not, you
here's
know?
yeah, then that's a really good question. But now think about the history and the discovery of the chimpanzee and the silverback gorilla. It's only been in modern history that those creatures were discovered by the human race. It was
Right.
always spectacle of cave drawings and so on that this is just a mythical creature. And it was blowing off until the silverback gorilla was discovered. And of course, it's been less than 20 years that this last upright um, primate was discovered, and I'm sorry, I forgot the name. I had it right there on the tip of my tongue as to what the name of that chimpanzee, but it stands 6 feet tall and it walks around bipedally. It doesn't walk on, it's not a quadruped walker. It walks bipedally. And
Wow.
for years and years, it was thought that this creature was just a myth. And here it was discovered
Right.
that there was a small colony of them. Okay, now that changes the dynamics of everything because that is now getting closer to the discovery of a Bigfoot type of creature. It's getting
So,
much closer to it.
get this then.
The billy ape, that's the name.
Oh,
It's
right.
called the billy
Okay.
ape,
Yes, I remember
and I
now.
believe its discovery was in 2008. So we're talking very relative history.
Right.
So as
New.
far as shapeshifters, being over the centuries of
Mhm.
shapeshifting into a wolf or into a cat or into a
Mhm.
werelion, probably because the entire primate species wasn't even discovered yet, so it wasn't put into the dynamic of shapeshifting. Maybe that's
Mhm.
why. I'm only
Mhm.
speculating, but maybe that's
I
why.
had an idea. So, you mentioned that the billy apes and the silverback gorillas were written on cave walls, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you take everything that was written just for fun, take everything that's been written on cave walls, the different
Mm-hmm.
animals, and let's make them all real. What else would be real?
All right.
That would be so
Um,
awesome.
yeah, good question. I mean, there are hieroglyphs of things that still make us scratch our head, including Anubis. Okay, you can throw that in because that was done in a hieroglyph in the ancient Egypt world. But as far as the cave paintings were, and of course a lot of people they'll close their eyes and picture cave paintings, and you'll see your typical mammoth and
Mhm.
and buffalo and so on, which that was part
Right.
of the food source and it was part of the hunt, and I think it was documented that way. But
Mhm.
yeah, there are some creatures that still dragon-like creatures that have
Mm.
anthropology and archaeology and
Mm.
all the ologies scratching their heads going, what made them see this flying creature with big
Right?
bat-like wings and a serpent body? So, maybe
Right.
there
Well,
was
I
an
mean,
existence.
even back in early paintings, I don't think it was on cave walls. I mean, maybe it was, but in really early paintings, there
Mm-hmm.
were UFOs in the sky.
Oh, yeah, that's very infamous, along with the
Hmm.
biblical era, um,
Right.
depicting Christianity in artwork. But yeah, so much of
Hmm.
it has that UFO in the background or whatever, and nobody can really point to say, well, no, actually, you're looking at it wrong. How can you look at it wrong? It looks like a friggin' spaceship with a human or
Right?
a humanoid sitting inside of it flying
Exactly.
around long before flight was even discovered. So,
Hmm.
and then, of course, I always jump back to, you know, look at your depictions of Jesus Christ, and the
Hmm.
halo isn't above the head. The halo starts at the shoulder and goes around the head, much like a clear bubbled space helmet. So who's to
Right.
say? Yeah.
Exactly.
And of course, and you've just dug another rabbit hole that we could go down for days and days and days. But, it is fascinating on how the human species has documented its history and the creatures around us and the things that happened around us throughout millennia. And yet we're still holding that mystery in our hand as well. What did it
Right.
represent? And I always go back
Well,
to to this point where it seems like human history isn't this continual chain. It seemed like in the human existence, there's this blank spot where we lost all this information between where we are now and what happened then. Because if the human existence was this continual chain, the teachings of, let's say, the Anubis, for example, would still be carried through to today for us to have a complete and total understanding of what it is and not an interpretation.
Right.
It would be taught and be taught and be taught. But somehow it seems like there's this big, giant blank spot in the human existence where now we're looking back at our past and trying to put the pieces together as to what happened. And that fascinates me altogether. And once again, that's an entirely different show with its own rabbit hole. But yeah, I find this whole thing so fascinating with, the shapeshifters and where did it all come about from, and what creatures were actually chosen to be, the shape-shifting creatures, and creatures becoming in the human form too. All of this is just absolutely, you can lose your mind in it, but it's part of why we're in this community, is to try to lose our mind, because at some point in some conversation, one person might say something so profound that it opens up a door that people never thought of before and go, oh, never really thought about that before. And here they open up that door, and maybe beyond that door is the answer. We can only hope, at least I hope, that's why we do this, is we're always in search of an answer. And of course, for our listeners, because you're the greatest listeners in the world, really feel free, put your thoughts into the Library of Lore Interactive Facebook group page and put some of your thoughts in there as to what you think about the whole shape-shifting thing. Do you believe it's a possibility? Do you believe it's a definite reality? Or do you believe it's all just a bunch of stories? And of course, we don't judge by anybody that writes in there or puts your opinion in. So, yeah, that entire thing is, it can give you goosebumps, it really can, when you think about it for a extended period of time. And then, of course, you go to bed and then you have dreams about it. And it's like, oh, I shape-shifted last night in my dreams. Oh, that was fantastic.
Oh, my gosh. I think I've done that a couple times in dreams that I remember. I was a bird and I could fly. And it was crazy because you could really, it was so familiar, such a familiar feeling, like this was so normal for you, and just the second nature. It was, it was crazy. And then, let's see, when I was a kid, okay, this is going to be really dorky, but for the sake of the show, when I was a kid, I used to love to dress in all black long sleeve shirt, black like sweatpants, put on black socks, and then I'd put my hair back, and I would try to stay within the shadows all through the house, and I would kind of like crawl and try to sneak, and I was pretending I was a jaguar.
Wow, see?
And
so that's where the fascination started. Oh.
I think I did start as a little kid, that I did have a dream where I actually was a jaguar because I was so into it, So.
Well, they're an absolutely beautiful creature, and of course, jaguar, is just one term. I know Black Panther is another term used, but it's all basically the same animal.
They're spotted.
Oh yes, there's there's spotted jaguar, there's black jaguar, there's jaguar is
they're beautiful.
It's a wide array of different types. It's like saying dog. Okay, you have different colored dogs, different size dogs, but jaguar, panther, it's all still part of the same thing. But listen to you sneaking around your house as the panther in the shadows.
Right. I think our listeners are getting to know me a little too well. I'm starting to share my secrets.
Yeah. Oh, there's plenty of secrets, people, that there's still a whole book of secrets you don't know yet.
That's
so yeah. Don't worry about that, Jen. They only know the tip of the iceberg. Yeah,
Yes, that's
only.
true.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I do have the privileged information, and if anybody wants to donate, let's say $50 to the Patreon, I'll be
Right.
happy to divulge a little bit more information.
There you
That's
go.
part of our Patreon campaign that we do here at the Caravan of Lore, because
Yeah.
it costs us money to do this. But
It does.
that said, this is an absolute passion that Jennifer and I love to do, and we love to bring
Mhm.
this type of stories to you guys. And that's really the most important thing. This is not a money motivated process that we go through. It just
No.
certainly helps to have something in there to upgrade equipment. Of course, Jennifer,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
you just bought a new microphone. Congratulations. And,
I
you know,
did. I
we're,
was really excited. I had to I got a new microphone, and then I had to get a new pop screen and a new boomstick. And hopefully
I love the fact that you call it a boomstick, because
Boomstick?
okay, there's a whole story behind the boomstick. All right. Yeah,
Okay.
she didn't get a new rifle, people. She got a new mic stand and a
Right.
boom stand for her microphone. Yes, so no new rifle for Jennifer in the boomstick era. But I just
No.
love the fact that you do that. I think it's just adorable. I really do.
Yeah,
It's
well,
great.
and it's crazy. Hopefully, this is the second episode that I've recorded on the new mic. So I'm hoping that the listeners find it a little more pleasing than before.
Hmm.
I'm still, learning the Audacity ropes, but it's going really well. And as for the patron, I definitely do want to give a shout out to our two wonderful patrons, Ryan Sprague and
Hmm.
Justin from Mysterious Circumstances podcast. It's an honor to have them on there, and we are patrons of them too. So you guys should also check out their podcast, Somewhere in the Skies and
Hmm.
Mysterious
Hmm.
Circumstances. We have two tiers right now for Patreon. The first one is just $1 a month, where you get, you'll get shout outs. You will be put on the episode page as one of our patrons. And if you have a podcast, if you have a link to a website, I'll put it on there.
Right.
The next tier is $5 a month, and you get your name on the thing, and you get the shout outs and everything. But you also get a monthly card reading, or intuition reading rather. So in our group every Friday, I'll pull 3 cards, and you just pick one, whatever one, you feel called to, and then the next day I reveal it. Well, with the intuitive reading, it's a lot more in depth. So you get, all 3 cards. If not, sometimes there's more depending on the spread that I do. I also use like my angel board and my pendulum and other means of divination to get a deeper reading. So, yeah, definitely, and then the money that comes in from that, I would be honored to be able to start to travel around to the different haunted places and do more write-ups about my experiences, and then do an episode on it like we did with the McMinimans Grand Lodge and the Ghost Log.
Hmm.
I think that would be fantastic. So those are some goals that I have. This is definitely a passion. In fact, I talked to some friends from school, and they're like, "Oh, well, how are you doing?" Because I graduated in 2005, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm pretty good," and I'm doing this over here with the caravan and everything, and they're like, "Wow. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that, you always had a passion for it back in school. How cool is that you get to do that now?" And
Hmm.
that was a huge compliment. It really meant a lot to me, because, yeah, this is
Right.
definitely where my heart lies.
Well, with that said, and a big congratulations to Somewhere in the Skies. Ryan does do a fantastic show. If
Mm-hmm.
none of you have heard it yet, he does put together a really
Yeah.
neat production. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
it's UFO based and related, because if you're anything like me, I don't stick on just one subject matter and fascinate on Bigfoot. I'm only
Right.
Bigfoot. No, I love to bounce around, because I'll get bored with, the Bigfoot thing here, but you know what? This little spiny creature over here is kind of interesting, and I
Oh,
get into
why
that
limit
for a while.
yourself? Oh, it's an amazing pool of so many possibilities.
No, right? Very
Mm-hmm.
much so. But anyway, with the Patreon, the money
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go anywhere else other than directly back into the show. It
Right.
doesn't go to buy a car payment. It doesn't go out
Mm-hmm.
for groceries or the mundane. It
Yeah, it's
goes
strictly for our
directly
hosting, our equipment.
related to the
Mm-hmm.
show. It helps keep the website active. It helps keep the podcast active. It keeps maintenance on equipment because, just like your car, you need to change the oil and the microphone every 3,000 miles. So, that costs money.
Right. There you
So,
go.
but I just want everybody to know that that is a reassurance of the fact that the
Mm-hmm.
money, it does cost Jennifer and myself to do a podcast. Like I said, we do it for the love of it. And we got into this on our own decision and our own passion to do this. So it is our responsibility. But in order to improve and make it blossom like a beautiful flower, it does take a little bit of financing to have that happen. So
Mm-hmm.
if you do decide to do that, we would be forever in your debt. And of
Oh
course,
yeah.
the big
Lots of shout outs
kudos
and
would
loves to
be
you.
shout out back to you and great support. And you would have a greater influence on the show itself. If there's a specific subject that you would really like to hear about, Jennifer and I would be the first ones to jump both feet in and research that subject matter. As a Patreon donor, we would jump in both feet and just do as much research and do a show on it, just as a thank you back to you. So, too, in return, and that would be our biggest thank you to you. And great fun.
No, for sure. And we will let Shawn take us out tonight with our new outro music, as well as you can find him now on every single one of our episode pages. I will make sure to link his band page and his Instagram, and he also has a Facebook page for his music, so you can follow along with his tour dates and all the new songs that he comes out with.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing it. So go ahead, cue music.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Watch your step, lest you move on death. It lay there cold, eating underneath your last breath. Hold your tongue, still I've gone. The beast that follows is close, but we'll move on. Snake eyes always on my tail. Snake eyes always up ahead. Oh, snake eyes hidden in the dark. Snake eyes better catch a spark. Of peril and impending doom. dark.